vacation from OAKLA to LV. I'm a Raider.
Raider Nation, what's going on? You're watching the Raiders Report. We're breaking this show down because the Las Vegas Raiders, they just cut 7 players. And at the end of today's show, I'm going to give you some news around Daniel Carlson. Now, if you love the shirt that I got on and if you love what we're doing here at the show, go give our sponsor a little bit of love. Shout out to Autumn Abyss for hooking up me with some awesome Raiders apparel. And if you guys want some good stuff, head on over to autumnabyss.com. Don't worry. Down in the description and in the comments, and click Enter the Abyss right on that webpage to save 20%. So the reason why the Raiders had to go ahead and cut some guys is because you got to get down to the 85-man roster set by August 17th. So the Raiders only had to cut 5, but they decided to move on from 7 players, which is pretty interesting. So then we're also going to be breaking down some other cuts that could potentially happen later on in the week as well, because the August 24th, but the one that's really important is August 31st. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go through every single player. I'm basically going to tell you why this guy ultimately got cut and then give you the updated depth chart here for the Raiders. So the first guy, Case Cookus. The only reason why Case Cookus was signed, Case, is because the Raiders weren't 100% sure whether or not Marcus Mariota was going to be healthy. Literally about 3-4 hours ago, I made a video on the Raiders Report saying that the Raiders plan to have Mariota back at practice. So for Cookus, who was only on this team for probably less than 10 days, didn't get any action whatsoever. You know who gets a lot of action on and off the field? Nathan Peterman. So no more Case Cookus here. So you're going to be rocking with Derek Carr, Mariota, and Peterman. These are going to be your 3 quarterbacks for the rest of the preseason. Peterman is going to make this team also because his contract, remember, it is fully guaranteed. It's $1 million, but it's still fully guaranteed. Now, if you always find yourself looking for the latest news and rumors around the Raiders, look no further. We got you covered here. If you haven't already subscribed to the Raiders Report, what are you waiting for? I don't care if you're driving to work. I don't care if you're walking to school. I don't care if you're dropping a number 2. We will keep you updated all season long, all preseason long. So smash that subscribe button right underneath the video. Let's go to the next player here that ended up getting cut. Dominik Eberle, place kicker. He was the main kicker this past week for the Raiders up against the Seattle Seahawks. He was a UDFA out of Utah State last season, and he had plenty of instances where he was cut, then signed, cut, then signed, and here's just another example of why he was, cut. It's because Daniel Carlson, he's ultimately back. So now when you look at the depth chart here for the special teams unit, it's Carlson, it's A.J. Cole, Trent Sieg. If you're wondering who that is, it's the long snapper. They signed him to a 3-year deal. Still some battles going on with kick returner, some punt returner as well. But we're actually going to stick with these special teams because they also let go of long snapper Liam McCullough. McCullough was a long snapper from Ohio State. He was on last year UDFA, never played whatsoever. Kind of the same situation with Eberle, where the Raiders kept him around in case Sieg got cut, in case Daniel Carlson was battling an injury here or there. These are going to be players that you at least should keep an eye on, especially with the NFL in today's world with COVID. So just keep an eye on some of these guys. They might be back on the roster sooner rather than later. But again, updated special teams depth chart, looking at it again. All I want you to look at, though, is Carlson, A.J. Cole, and then Trent Sieg. Now, we have the best fans in all of sports, and I'm not afraid to say that here on the show. So how many years have you been a Raiders fan? I know a lot of y'all are always like, womb to the tomb, but seriously, how many years have you been a Raiders fan? And maybe you've been a fan since the 60s, the 70s, the 80s. What made you become a Raiders fan? My dad always talks about Bo Jackson being just one of the most incredible athletes of all time. I wish I could have watched, honestly, Bo, I wish I could have watched Charles Woodson in their prime. But let me know down in those comments, I know you guys always do, how many years have you been a Raiders fan? Next player coming up here that was just released by Las Vegas, Bo Scarbrough. So Scarbrough was signed last week to the Raiders roster, and it's mainly because he got some injuries to Jalen Richard. They didn't plan on playing Josh Jacobs in the preseason. They didn't plan on playing Kenyon Drake. So Las Vegas, Gruden, they want to be able to run the football, and they tried to do it a little bit with Scarbrough, and I get it. He's a big guy. He's 6'1", 235 pounds. He looks like a linebacker, but he runs like a center, and he's just not very good in the NFL at this point. He had 4 carries this past week, 10 yards, looked like a little bit of a plotter, and let's just face it, Trey Regis, much better. 13 carries, 62 yards, and a touchdown. Garrett Groshek, he was the backup fullback to Alec Ingold, but he even was getting snaps over Bo Scarbrough. And then B.J. Emmons, another running back who was actually pretty impressive this past week. 9 carries, a touchdown, averaged 5.0 yards per carry. But I'm going to go out and say that it's going to be Josh Jacobs, Kenyon Drake, Alec Ingold, and I actually have my fingers crossed that Trey Regis can make this team. But if Jalen Richard is healthy with his contract, with his special teams ability, it could ultimately be him. Now, if you love the shirt that I'm wearing, y'all, and again, it's from Autumn Abyss. Shout out to my guys here. They are some diehard Raider fans, and we always say, you support family. You can go out and get some high-quality shirts. Does anybody know when I say, like, dry fit, like Nike dry fit, how that feels? That's what these shirts feel like. Now, you're going to look at the price. You're like, oh, wow, it's a little pricey. But portions of the proceeds go to certain sponsors or they go to certain foundations. So this, the Bo Jackson jersey, goes to a charity of his choosing. The Tom Flores hoodie that you just saw goes to Tom Flores' foundation. Charles Woodson, like, they have so many different shirts. The one that says it started in Las Vegas, or it started in the town. What is this? I don't know. It's the Las Vegas one. I'm losing my mind here. But that one's from Marshawn Lynch. That also goes to charities for kids in Oakland. So bottom line, you're not only going to get an awesome Raider shirt, you're not only going to get something that you can wear in 115-degree weather in Vegas, it's also going to go to a good charity. So once you go to the website, click Enter the Abyss, because I don't know about you, I like a good deal. So if you can save 20%, you should go ahead and do it. And for whatever reason you can't remember the link that you see below, AutumnAbyss.com, believe me, after y'all made me drink as much as you did the other day, I could barely remember how to get home. So I'm going to put it in the comments. I'm going to put it in the description. Don't worry, I got you covered. We got 3 more players to be able to cover here that just got cut by the Las Vegas Raiders. Caleb Scott, wide receiver. So what I tried to do on the earlier show today was predict which cuts were going to happen. The only one I got right, 1 out of 5. It sounds like my batting average when I used to play in high school. No wonder I got DH for and played shortstop. But Caleb Scott was the wide receiver here. Never played in an NFL game. 6'2", 203-pound wide receiver out of Vanderbilt. And when it comes down to it, he just wasn't good enough to get on the field. Keelan Doss had a good game. Marcel Aitman was getting a lot more snaps than him. Dylan Stoner, I'm high on him. Willie Snead is also a player out there. And then DJ Turner, he's getting kick return. He's getting punt return. It's just there was no place, honestly, for Caleb Scott. So he's no longer there. Here's the updated looking Raiders wide receiver depth chart. Henry Ruggs, Brian Edwards, those are going to be your top 2 guys. John Brown didn't suit up. Zay Jones played like he was absolutely out of his mind this past week. 3 catches for 57 yards. But in terms of a slot presence, that was probably the only chance Scott had to make it in. Well, he's not on the team for a reason. Let's go to the next player up here. It's Devante Bausby, cornerback. He probably just got cut because the only picture we could find is a Broncos jersey. Sorry, Sam. But in terms of overall production, this was a unit that was looking to be able to get more productivity out of its secondary, out of its cornerback play. And Bausby just really wasn't quite cutting it. Whether it was training camp, whether it was practice, he was just falling further and further down the depth chart. Barely even played against Seattle. So I get that he's 6'2", 190 pounds. I think the reason why he was ultimately brought over to this team is because he had some, we'll say, I guess he knew the AFC West is probably the way I would put it. Plus, Gus Bradley, they like long, lanky corners. But the fact that Isaiah Johnson sounds like he's going to be able to come back and he's going to start practicing, I just don't see why you keep Devante Bausby. Maybe even somebody like Bleedy Wren Wilson, someone to keep in mind, Sean Crawford. But ultimately, Bausby was not good enough to make this team. So let's look at the Raiders' cornerback depth chart now as it is updated. Nevin Lawson, that asterisk is there is because he is suspended the first 2 weeks of the season, which might be actually some good news for Nate Hobbs, the rookie out of Illinois, who had himself one hell of a ball game, 2 tackles. He had himself a pass breakup, a sack. He was just all over the football field, and he might go ahead and start. If you want to hear more about that story, watch my rumors video from a little bit earlier on today. Now, if you like what I'm doing here at the Raiders Report, you can always hit me up on IG. It's at Mitchell Renz 365. My DMs are open for, well, I guess I should say multiple reasons. You know what I'm talking about. So seriously, slide in my DMs. Hit me up at Mitchell Renz 365. I do Instagram lives all the time as well. I like to get to know y'all. I want to get to know the nation a little bit. But if you see anything from this video, you're like, you know what? That guy's not too bad. Hit me up. All right, the next one coming up here is Ethan Westbrooks. This is the last name in terms of the cuts that the Raiders made to get down to that 85-man roster. Westbrooks was just signed, I'm going to say about a week ago, and 6'4", 287-pound from West Texas A&M. He didn't play last season, but he was a player that bounced around on the Raiders practice squad back in 2019. I'm going to go ahead and say that the only reason why Westbrooks really got signed this week is because Gerald McCoy is not quite up to, we'll say, game speed. So the Raiders, they signed McCoy earlier this offseason, and he's probably going to end up playing some nose tackle. But I think the other reason why the Raiders didn't want to keep him, they're confident in some of their young players. So we didn't get to see Yannick Ngakoue. We didn't get to see Max Crosby. Cleveland Ferrell, he played like that freaking entire game. I was like, geez, Cle, get off the field. We know you can do it. Malcolm Kuntz, the rookie, and third-round pick. Easy over there, Brett Sky. You're ripping on my guy, Cleveland Ferrell. But Malcolm Kuntz, he played a pretty decent game. Carl Nassib had some good snaps, and Gary Green's actually been pretty productive thus far. Wow, speaking, still tough. So let's go through these cuts one more time. Case Cookus later. Dominik Eberle, Liam McCullough, Bo Scarbrough. Those were the first 4 cuts made. Also Caleb Scott, Devante Bausby, and then Ethan Westbrooks. So again, if you guys have not subscribed to the Raiders Report, what the hell are you waiting for? Hit that big red button. So out of all 7 of those cuts, which one surprises you the most? Because not that these are surprise cuts. I mean, let's face it. None of these players were going to make the 53-man roster. I'm sorry. I know you show up to practice every day. I know these guys work really hard. But none of them were going to make the team. So which cut surprised you the most? If you want to know what cut surprised me the most, slide in my DMs. We also got some news from today's show. Daniel Carlson, the Raiders kicker, just got activated off the COVID-19 list. So that could also be a big reason why they're not going to keep Dominik Eberle, even though he played halfway decent. But I am excited to see what Carlson's going to be able to do in the final 2 preseason games. I know he started off his career rocky with the Minnesota Vikings, missed 3 field goals, ended up getting cut. The Raiders swoop in the old Auburn kicker, and he has had a pretty good career, just signed a brand new deal extension with the Las Vegas Raiders. So what do we do here at the Raiders Report? We keep you guys up to date on everything going on around the silver and black. Plus, if there's any good deals going on around the internet, that's what we're here for. So I'm going to be live tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, 3 p.m. Pacific. We're going to be breaking down some even more Raiders news and rumors. If you guys have never joined a live Raiders Report show, this is where we also bring your questions on. If any other breaking news happens from now until tomorrow, I will go live. But until then, I'll see you tomorrow.